Welcome to the attendees who have already found their link and made it here. I want to welcome everyone to our second panel of the day. And this is where we're going to be hearing from Amy Radin, founder of Pragmatic Innovation Partners, and Gary Portuesi, founder of Authentic Exploration. They will be talking with Kerry Hannon about leveraging their expertise to start and grow their own business. For those who don't know, Kerry is a leading authority and strategist on career transitions, entrepreneurship, personal finance, and retirement. And she's a best-selling and award-winning author of 14 books. Her newest book, In Control at 50 Plus, How to Succeed in the New World of Work, will be published in November. She also writes the retiring column for the New York Times, covering topics related to retirement, as well as feature stories on personal finance, volunteering, working, and wealth. We'd like to welcome all three of you here today. I will turn it over to Kerry, who will be guiding the discussion with Gary and Amy.
Well, thank you so much. It is so much fun to be part of this Unconference for founders over 40. And I'm really thrilled to be talking to these two amazing entrepreneurs that I think all of you are going to learn quite a bit about how they got started and why, and all the challenges of growing your business as you move along. But we're going to kick it off and just have both Amy and Gary tell us a little bit about their businesses and why they got started, the impetus, and when. So Amy, if you wouldn't mind, just give us a snapshot of what your business is all about.
Okay, fine. So first of all, great to be here and delighted to be reunited with Gary. We were colleagues way back when. I had a long career in the corporate world in consumer financial services and was an executive at Citi, AXA, American Express, and more recently as a digital transformation executive and a chief innovation officer. And 7 years ago, I decided, when I saw how the market and the need in financial services in particular to drive digital transformation on a more accelerated way, I'm a change agent. And I decided that my skills and what would give me joy, that I'd be happier and could have a really satisfying career outside the corporate world, working with companies, coming in from the outside and helping them. And so I left corporate. It was a little scary at the time, but built a portfolio career. And I defined my purpose at this point as using my expertise to help leaders build transformative businesses, whether those are startups trying to launch from an early stage concept out to large enterprises trying to move their organizations into the new world. So my career, my business, my portfolio is basically a combination of board service, advisory board relationships, keynote speaking, and workshopping, and then my book, The Changemakers Playbook, which I published 2 years ago and has been a great kind of the bedrock of my building my brand as a solopreneur.
Oh, fantastic. Now, Gary, your business is quite different.
Yes, it is. And Kerry, thank you so much for having us today. And it is great to be reunited with Amy. What a joy. So at Authentic Explorations, we design tailor-made luxury travel experiences in Europe and in the United States. And like Amy, I have a corporate background. I worked for American Express for about 25 years, which is where Amy and I met. And about 7 years ago, so similar timeline as Amy, I decided that I had enough of the corporate world, and perhaps the corporate world had enough of me, not sure which, but I decided to follow my passion. And my passion has always been travel, and decided that there's no reason why you can't turn that into a business, into a successful business. And just the need was to figure out how to differentiate myself in a very crowded space. So that was my job for the first year or two, and I think we've successfully achieved that, and I'm happy to expound on that later on in the program.
So Amy, I'm going to ask one more question of Gary here. Gary, what did you did at American Express? How did that prepare you for starting this business?
So great. So during the course of the 25 years, mostly what I did was in product development on the travel side. So if you think about the travel benefits and features of and services of Platinum and Centurion card members, and the membership rewards program, the loyalty program. All of those programs I worked on all the way to my very last project, which was launching the Centurion lounges for American Express. They all were interrelated, all of these different jobs that I had over the course of 25 years, which is essentially finding a need or creating a need for customers in the travel space. So that was pretty much what I harnessed.
Yeah, I see that. Well, Amy, how about you? What you did before, you kind of alluded to it, but in your career before you launched officially on your own as a solopreneur, how did that prepare you for starting on your own?
I mean, really tremendously. First of all, the relationships that I built. So I have a very deep well of relationships accumulated over my 25 years in the corporate world. And these are the people who I tap into, both to develop advisory relationships, to open up doors to board seats, and to help me. People, when you're on your own, you need to tap into your network really deeply for expertise. Also, everything that I learned, all the disciplines that I learned, particularly at American Express, on how do you build new products and services? How do you guide change and transformation? I have a just massive toolkit of discipline and experience that I bring to the people who I work with, particularly startups, where those disciplines are generally lacking. You have an entrepreneur with a great idea and maybe some code, but the whole discipline of how do you actually create a business at scale and serve customers, often they're not so experienced at. So I'm bringing basically my 25 years of expertise, productizing that into my advisory services.
So you both really, I'd like to call it redeploying your skills into a new venture. So the whole issue, I think a lot of people in the audience think about is, okay, so I've got this great idea, I've got the experience, I've launched this business. At what point do you say, okay, I'm ready to grow to the next level? And how do you scale a business? I mean, that's really frightening to kind of start to give up control if that is in fact part of that process. So Gary, if you would mind give us a little insight. I know you expanded your business not that long ago.
Yes, that's right. So my business started as a very niche business, as a side business while I was with American Express about 20 years ago. And we were just focused on one region of Italy, Sicily. Nobody was doing luxury travel there. And then it became a successful and viable business, and I decided to expand it. So the lesson learned there was start with what you know, but then as you expand, you can look at sort of other areas, other businesses, things that make sense, things that are related. You wind up meeting people and building relationships, that'll help you build your business over time. A lot of it is just about networking. I can't tell you how many clients of mine are just former colleagues of mine at American Express, and you kind of build from there. It's difficult to grow your business, admittedly, when you're a small business. You don't have the funding or the big marketing budgets to basically, promote your business out there in all the different ways you can do that in a corporate setting. So you have to be really smart about it, and you really have to rely on your connections, your relationships within the industry, your personal relationships, and also being very, seeking out opportunities to be part of professional organizations. I think that's really important, and that's where the connections come in. And then you want to sell each other's businesses, or sell to each other, share customers, and it works out very nicely.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that supportive nature, I think that sort of builds the process. Amy, what about your experience? How have you been able to grow your business over time?
I think I want to echo a number of the points that Gary made, because I think they're right. I think being smart about choosing professional associations that you can be a part of, and then taking advantage of them. I've been in and out of a couple of organizations where I felt I myself wasn't making the effort to tap into the network of people there. So choosing a few and really, really engaging with people in the organization, I think that's a great way to kind of widen the funnel of people who you know. Being willing to ask people for help. telling people what you're doing. I mean, I've built a social media presence, and I invest in my social media presence, focused essentially on LinkedIn because I decided that's the best platform for me. And I am out there constantly talking to people, and that attracts people to me. The work that I do, you can't time it. It's not seasonal. It's very situational and particular. So it's really important for me and my strategy to have constant awareness among the people who would be interested in what I do, so that when they have a need, they are going to reach out to me. So those have been, at the wide end, social media; at the more focused end, tapping into my network and choosing organizations to affiliate with.
And I like you mentioning LinkedIn, because that's a real opportunity for business owners, small business owners, to create a dialogue. You're supporting someone else. You're not always out there selling yourself, but you're lending support or weighing in on a topic, correct?
Yeah, and that's particularly important for me because really I'm bringing thought leadership to my clients. I'm bringing them insight based on my experience as to how they can move their businesses forward. So I approach my social media with I try to be very generous. I do not sell on social media. I share value-adding content. So I have a very specific marketing strategy against my purpose and goals, and I execute that in my content on social media, also on YouTube, because I do, yeah.
And Gary, what's your outlet to really attract customers? What are your favorite?
Yeah. So we have sort of three pillars, we'll call them. One is the network that we've developed over time, our personal network, our professional network, clients, former clients. Second, my husband and I own Degustabus Cooking School that's on the 8th floor of Macy's, and we have a built-in audience of about 40,000 foodies who love to travel from the New York City area. So we tap into that base. And then third, we built on the accolades that we've been showered with. We're on Travel and Leisure's A-list and Condé Nast's travel specialist list, and we do get a lot of referrals from those, and we do have to work it. So those are sort of our three pillars in finding new customers. But we also do other things like social media and so forth. And admittedly, that is not my forte, but I do have people, thankfully, who know how to work it, and they do. And we're now launching a search engine optimization effort, things like that, to really sort of take us to the next level and find the right customers, because we are a niche player, and you want to be very careful. You don't want to spread and just take anybody in, but you want to find the right players, the right customers, the right prospects.
Yeah, you have to keep the cachet there, I think. Now, both of you work out of virtual offices, right? You don't have bricks and mortar, is that correct?
Right.
Sort of. Yes, we do lease a WeWork space.
Because that's
I belong to a co-working space too. It's a local space near my home in New Jersey. And I just really like it because it's another way to network and meet people and just have people to talk to, bounce ideas off of. I like being in a social environment. So easier to do that now that things are improving on the COVID front. But I love doing that, and it's money well spent.
Now, you both are, in many ways, the faces of your business. I mean, it is your personality and your expertise that really drives revenues and drives customers to you, or attracts customers to you. What have been some of the biggest challenges for you in terms of, growing the business, of keeping your own energy and enthusiasm up on a day when you don't have a lot of other people to sort of share the burden with you? And I guess, Gary, you want to start with that one?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think, the theme of, brandpreneurship, I think it's an important one for us. It's certainly for a company like mine, because if, you're in your 50s and your desire is to grow the business and eventually put forward your exit plan, you want to be able to sell your business, and you don't want to be attached to that brand forever. I think as a starting point, it's great. It gives you a lot of credibility, especially with your network. But over time, you want to be able to transfer that credibility to the other people on your team, so that together you make up the company and the brand, and then you have the ability to sell it and not worry about you Gary, what's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to the business with or without me? The business should be able to survive without me. And I think that's ultimately that 5-year plan that I'm actually working on today. I had it in place a couple of years ago, but COVID kind of derailed it a little bit. But that's sort of the game plan for me. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that was great. Amy?
Well, I have a little different plan because I am the business and I don't plan to grow a team beyond me. Having managed huge teams in my corporate life, I decided I just don't want to do that anymore. And so I am managing my portfolio to the capacity that I have and to do the things that I want to do. And, it is such that I can do it forever. I can stop at some point, but it's a little different strategy. The exit plan is I just stop, which I can't ever imagine doing because I really enjoy it and I have a lot of energy, but you never know.
But what I love about what both of you are doing, when I get so excited about entrepreneurship, and I think there's just so many rewards. And what you just said, Amy, I think is interesting because it's the flexibility of being your own boss. In many ways, you take on all these responsibilities, yes, but you both have a lot of flexibility in your work. Gary, how does that play into your interest in continuing to be an entrepreneur?
That whole notion of flexibility, I think, is key for me, especially in the vertical that we're in travel, right? Part of the reason why I started the company was to have total flexibility and to have my job fit into my lifestyle, and my lifestyle includes travel. It includes spending time in my second home in Italy. And this allows me to do that. I can transfer my office to Italy for the summer. Who's better than me? I mean, that's like that was one of my goals in life, and I did it. So you are allowed, you do, and I think COVID has also done that in many of the other verticals and many of the other, no matter how large or small your business is, I think there's that whole notion of like wanting flexibility. But also being a small business owner, you have the flexibility when you want, but you also have to potentially work weekends and weeknights, and you make up for that lost time, and that's fine. I'd rather have that.
No, and I know you both had your businesses going for a while, but I do think a lot of wannabe entrepreneurs think about, well, how am I going to finance my startup? And today it can be a little complicated. Do you have any words of wisdom on how you financed your startup, or what you see as sort of great avenues for people right now? Amy, I'll start with you on that one.
Yeah. So honestly, I exited my job with resources, and I did a very disciplined financial plan to understand what could I afford to do. Getting started required investing, which I did on my own. I elected to go through a non-traditional publishing route, which is kind of a hybrid of self and traditional, that required me to put a little capital up. I did a financial plan, and I think it's a serious question. I think flexibility, we're talking about flexibility. Part of having flexibility, it starts with making sure, understanding how you're gonna finance yourself and what resources do you need just for your life while you're getting what you're doing up and going. I work with startup companies where in a number of situations, my financial rewards are in equity. So they're not showing up as cash right now. Right. And so I had to take that into consideration and say, is that a risk I want to take? And is that something I can afford to do? So thinking all of that through up front is important.
Yep. And Gary, what's your advice there? What worked for you?
Yeah, similar to what Amy said, I did self-fund to start the business, and in the travel business, fortunately, there's not a lot of overhead, and not a lot of investment required. But you have to carefully, determine where to place your bets and where to invest your dollars. I think that's more the question of starting up a business. And I've made a lot of mistakes. I could write a book on where to not spend money. But I think it's important, depending on what you're starting, there's a different answer to the question, and how much money is needed and how much overhead you're required to have. I think there are one of the things to be careful about is there's a gazillion companies out there dying to give money to small business owners or people who are starting up small businesses, and their terms are extremely unkind, and it's just a big watch out. So if you get to a point where you're doing well, but you want to expand and you do need additional capital, that's more the question. Where do you find that capital? And there are loans out there, but there's also potentially, friends and family who might want a piece of the business to consider, like, angel investing light, I'll call it, or something along those lines.
Yeah. Is there anything you would have done differently? I mean, Amy, is there anything, if you look back now, what would have you done anything differently on the path?
Yeah, I would have started sooner. I'd say when I left, I was laid off from a very big job in financial services at the start of the financial crisis and continued in the corporate world for another few years. And looking back, I'm sorry that I didn't make the break at that point. But it took me, took me time. I had to reflect upon what's my purpose, what do I want at this point in life. But that would be, I don't like to have regrets though. So, things happen for a reason, and this is the path I'm on, and it's a great path.
And Gary, how about yourself?
I think one of the big lessons learned was to really know who your customer is and to not be afraid to fire customers, and that not everybody is your customer. Initially, I was like, well, everybody wants to go to Italy, so of course, and then you realize, okay, that budget's really small. How am I going to make any money? Or, they're asking me to do the impossible and they're not really willing to pay for it. So you have to know, ultimately, you have to listen, you have to be willing to say, no thanks, and move on. It's okay. It's okay to say no. It's okay to fire a customer.
I like that. I think I've had to do that, and it's not easy.
It's not.
But I think that each of you, I think, coming through your background, have sales skills. I mean, a lot of people are not, because you really, as the face of your businesses, you have to be good at sales, even if you don't see it. Was that something that you had to work on, or did it come naturally to you?
And can I just hop in? This will be the last question that I would like Amy and Gary to answer.
Okay, so Amy, you're up. Salesmanship.
Well, first,
the old
I'll start. I'll start by saying that I am strongly introverted. So to me, and I had to really reframe my whole notion of what selling is. And I think selling starts with listening. It doesn't start with talking. And to Gary's point, understanding, who do I want to have as my customer? What problem can I solve for them better than anybody else? And how can I really be helpful for them? So how can I help my customers be successful at whatever the problem is that they want to solve? And then listening to them about their problems and needs and wants. And I think that's the starting point for great selling. So I've worked a lot on my listening skills, and it's really helped me.
Oh, that's great advice. Gary, what do you think?
I couldn't agree more with you, Amy. I think listening is the number one thing that we need to do here. And we do a lot of that. We ask a lot of questions to our customers, because at the end of the day, we're designing dream vacations. And it's all customized, and it's all about our clients. So, and their needs and their desires. If you don't listen to what they're looking for, then you can't possibly produce the right product. And, the number one thing that I think I do beyond listening, and what we all do on our team, is to build trust, because they're spending a lot of money with you, and they're going to be spending a week, 10 days, 2 weeks, whatever happens to be with you. They need to trust you. And you need to know who you are and what you're selling and what you're doing and what your people are all about. I think it's not a magic skill that you can learn. I think if you've got those very rational, reasonable kinds of, things that, are essential to any business, then you'll come across as a good salesperson.
I love that. I think ending on the note of trust is absolutely the best way to go out. Thank you both. I really appreciate your time, Amy and Gary. It was super. I learned a lot, and I hope everyone did as well.